you for the senses. May the touch of your skin register the beauty of the other that surrounds you. May your listening be attuned to the deeper silence where sound is honed to bring distance home. May the fragrance of a breathing meadow refresh your heart and remind you you are a child of the earth. And when you partake of food and drink, or the gift and sweetness that flows from the earth, may your inner eye see through the surfaces and glean the real presence of everything that meets you. May your soul beautify the desire of your eyes, that you might glimpse the infinity that hides, that sometimes seems worn. Taking a nice big inhale in, keeping the eyes closed, and then letting out the AH sound on the exhale, just very silent. Ah. And repeat. And repeat. My body's safe, my body breathes, and my body's comfortable. And when you're ready, gently open your eyes and come back into the room. So, anybody need to shift before we get into the manual? I haven't really introduced myself, so I'll just do a little introduction. I think you all know my name is Mary Jo. And I actually came to yoga many, many years ago. My mother was, she was quite a visionary in her time, and she was probably one of the few yoga teachers besides Ingalisa Nirhan, Sandra Sammartino, and the other woman that used to be on TV. You would know her.
Yeah. Was it Joy something?
No, Joya wasn't around yet. It was the blonde-haired German woman. Damn, I'll remember her name. Anyway, there was literally 3 yoga teachers in BC or Canada at the time. I mean, there was probably a few in Ontario. And she decided that she was going to do something about her back. She had a very, very severe scoliosis. And she had been struggling with it for, probably about 20 years since she'd been pregnant with 5 kids, and now she was 41 or so, and starting to have real degenerative problems and pain and stuff. So she had gone to the Y to a exercise class, and the woman that was teaching the class said to her, I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to be going to do a course, a yoga course. And she said, and we need a teacher for it. And she says, would you consider doing that? And because my mom liked the exercise class, I guess she asked her, because this woman didn't want to go. And so she got this ticket to go to this yoga workshop training. Had no idea what she was getting in for. Anyway, it ended up being Swami Radha, who some of you might know is very famous. The only woman, North American woman, that's actually been ordained as a Swami. Amazing woman. She built ashrams all across Canada. She really was kind of laying the groundwork for a lot of the mental, kind of psychological and philosophical backdrop for therapeutic yoga to be practiced for people that have mental health issues, any issues. She was phenomenal. So anyway, my mom, luckily enough, got to be quite good friends with her and study with her for the next 20 years or whatever, from when she was 40 till 60. And then she decided to start a Center for Stress Management, which again in the time was quite ahead of its time. There wasn't many of those around. And she teamed up with a psychologist and a physio, and the three of them together created this amazing little wellness clinic in Kamloops, BC, of all places. So that was my mom, and that was sort of my, my introduction to yoga. And then I, as all young kids do, I kind of avoided it because she was doing it in my 20s. And then when I started to get, all of the, normal kind of pinings in my 20s for more, must be more to life and more to this whole picture, I stumbled upon it again after my first child was born, and I was sort of instantly a single mother. I had 2 children, and I really used it for stress management at the time and for just peace of mind. I absolutely loved my twice-a-week yoga classes, and I happened to have another really famous teacher at the time, and a woman who still teaches at 80, and my mom still taught at 9. She's 91 now. She's taught up to last summer in her senior home. So I just had this really beautiful gift of being gifted with some great, personal introductions to the world of yoga. So I honor that greatly, and I've had many subsequent great teachers. My own journey went through, first of all, Iyengar. I studied that for a long time, which I think is why, the therapeutic end of it for me just it was so natural when I was injured. It was like, I know about alignment, I know about these things. And then I went in, after I studied Iyengar yoga, I went to sort of at the time there was a group of us that were only, a half a dozen or so that were introduced to Ashtanga through a guy named Larry Schultz, and at the time there was nothing in Canada like that. So we came back from Calgary, which is where I got introduced to Larry, and started a studio in Nelson. I did. And I then developed the Trinity Yoga Teacher Training Program, which went on to teach hundreds of teachers, a really solid foundation of
yoga.
And then I was injured in 2004. My diagnosis is an AGA complete, 4-5, so I crushed all 3 vertebrae in my neck. I had 2 days of extensive surgery to bring it all back. And one of the big pieces of my story, which I think is really important, is that I was really close to being intubated and trached. Trached, so when you have a spinal cord injury, if it's high enough in the cervical spine, 4 is touchy. You may or may not need to be artificially intubated so that you can breathe, because it knocks out all your intercostals and most of your breathing apparatus. So I was intubated, and they went in, of course, to set it up. And when I was in recovery, even couldn't speak, I had the thing in my mouth. I was like, no, you're not going to put that in me. And there was, a bit of an argument in the ICU, and I won, luckily, and so did yoga, because I don't honestly know how I did it, really. I mean, after talking to you, and bless all the people that can't make it over that little edge of transition, I just had good people around me, and I had the yoga around me. And subsequent to that, they took the intubator out and they let me try to breathe on my own. And after lots of pumping and respiratory therapy, getting the lower lungs working, I just did Ujjayi breathing, and I did a lot of it, and it worked. So, I spent 2 years, I spent a year in rehab. I had no arm movement. I don't technically have triceps, but I've recruited them through a lot of different things that we'll be talking about. Bandhas, core body, anatomy trains, using the, sort of the energetic fascial system to engage, using the vayus, which we'll talk about those later on, the movements of the body. So besides the medical things that I had to overcome, the catheters, keeping away all of these other, medical things, I was pretty diligent about getting massaged every day, about having, aromatherapy happen, about using the softer, more subtle, energetic things initially, and then as I started to get stronger, I added more of the physical things in. So initially it wasn't that I could do a forward fold and get back up. There was no way I could do that. I would fall over. I would fall over till 2007 or 8. I still fall over sometimes, but the fact of the matter is that the things that we're going to learn this weekend work. And they work depending on how you apply them and depending on when, but they work. So we don't need to worry about that. That's, a given. The next thing that we need to figure out is really how do they work and how can we make them work better for our clients, and how do we assess what's going to work for somebody and what may work better for another. So those are the kind of therapeutic tools that we want to hone in. Every client is going to be uniquely different. Every client, of course. And every injury or every condition has its own challenges and its own medical sort of profiles, but it also has the challenge of the client's brain and the client's mind, the way they think, how they approach things. All of these things we need to take into the consideration when we're looking at assessment and how to work with people. Not so that we're analyzing people, but so that we can best serve them. That's my history, and I'm so, like all of you, I love this stuff. I love seeing it work. After kind of, using my own body as a test, map and a training ground, around 2008 or 9, I started doing a lot more teaching. I got back into teaching, but it was funny. I was a little bit hesitant to teach an adaptive yoga thing. I went back to teaching Tantra, which is my sort of background, and teaching able-bodied people. And it was a funny thing. I had to go through a bit of a wholesale shift in my own personality to go, you know what, you're in a wheelchair. Let's get real. This is who you are now. And, we'll speak to that more, but it's kind of a bit of a thing you have to do. So I did, and I actually really love it now. I love the fact that last week, Tuesday, we taught at the Heart and Stroke Foundation, 50 people in a room, and just loving the fact that these guys are all moving and they're laughing and they're making funny faces and they're loving it, and we go to I-Cord, and I have private clients now, so I've been really fortunate. We did the CP group last summer, and the ways that we can apply these techniques and theories are unlimited and endless, so the sky's the limit in that regard. So let's go to our manuals next. I just have to say that my daughter helped me with the manual. She's a designer and a formatter, so thank you, Amanda, for making the manual look beautiful. Cherry, can you put this down over here? Do you have a manual? Do you want one? Is there an extra?